All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the program.
Welcome back. Hey, Drink
Welcome
Talk is
back.
live.
Hey, we are live.
Well, back from last week.
Yes, welcome back.
Yeah.
But I am ready to get started with the show.
Yes.
So let's do that. We'll count her down. We'll do 3, 2, 1.
This is Drink Talk, where we try to solve the world's problems one drink at a time. This week we'll be having Oktoberfest by Lucky Bucket, Kolsch by Blue Blood, and Spare Rib Pale Ale by Coop Ale Works, and discussing prisons for profit. We are your hosts, Brian and Britt.
Hey.
Hey.
What's up?
Back on the quick fade.
Yeah, right? I'm back on the quick fade. I'm also trying to pull up Facebook here so I can monitor
What, you're
everything that's
multitasking?
Multitasking while I do things.
Isn't that implied when you're multitasking?
Of course it is.
Yeah. All right, this is going.
So I was at the health food store the other day.
Which, the health food?
The Natural Grocers, I believe is what it's called.
I've never been there, but I've heard of it.
Yeah, where's that at? There's 78th and Dodge.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, we had a little gift card to go there, and I was like, let's check it out. If we've got a gift card, might as well.
Yeah.
And so we went there and we were shopping around, and I was also, I always like to buy nuts for the show and whatnot. And hey, the nuts that I bought, the Cajun nuts.
Nice.
You see what I did there?
There's going to be a tie-in to that a little bit later, right?
Well, yeah.
Another tie-in, though.
Oh, okay.
That I found later
Sure.
in doing
Well, you're
going to
bring up that tie-in then.
Yeah.
Perfect. I like it. All right, I'm ready to rock and roll.
Yeah.
So let's start our first beer.
Hey, Britt, you were the one that chose the beer this week. So
I did, but you did the research while I was cooking things up.
The full 5 minutes of research that I did on this.
Well, this is Companion.
Companion Kolsch. It's the German way of spelling companion. Kampagnon. It means, in German, it means buddy, as it kind of does in the English translation of companion. But this particular one, Blue Blood, is out of Lincoln, Nebraska here, so local-ish, and they are owned by
a bunch of cops.
So this particular one, the companion that they're talking about, is actually the canine, because it's their crime-fighting buddy there.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
Nice.
So this is a tribute to the canine unit.
Very cool.
Yeah. So with that being said,
cheers. It's very light.
Cheers. Yeah.
But look at it. Look at all the stuff in it.
Yeah.
It's got a
very,
lot
very
of
unfiltered.
Yeah,
for
very
sure.
unfiltered.
Yeah. Light in color, kind of a golden, hazy golden.
It kind of looks like the doggy dish after you drink some water out of it.
Now
No.
it makes my mouth water.
No, it's interesting. That's a different flavor. I can't say that I've had a flavor like that before.
Well, now to me it tastes like a German beer, and German beer, true German beers have I think they can only have 4 ingredients, but this one sticks pretty close to that Kolsch style. Yeah, and
4.2% alcohol.
Yep, and we are in October, and anybody who's anybody that knows anything about Germany should probably know about Oktoberfest.
Oh my gosh! So what was it? It had to be earlier today because it's Oktoberfest. It might have been. I think they did it on Saturday.
A lot of them do it in September, but October. Also
I think it was Saturday because that was when we were coming back from the grocery shopping. We were coming down 84th Street, and right where all those nice houses are, and we saw this German guy, in his, the
lederhosen?
Yeah, the lederhosen, and his little daughter dressed up as a Bierstein gal, and I'm like, oh, look, they're going to a little costume party. And then this house had a big banner on it that said Oktoberfest. I'm like, why wasn't I invited?
Right, yeah.
Looks like a fun party.
Hello?
Yeah, I brought beer.
Yeah. What kind?
So...
I really like this one. I'm usually not a light colored beer fan, but this is smooth, flavorful, full, and I wouldn't say it's full bodied. But
I do like it when it's less filtered. I enjoy that. I'm like, oh, that's the stuff they use to make it right there.
Yeah,
put it in my body.
Yes.
But yeah, I was shopping for the beer and I mentioned Blue Blood, and you were like, "Oh, that's a bunch of cops that have that." And I'm like, "Oh, because we're doing the prison thing."
Really good tie-in, yeah.
But
something really cool about Blue Bloods, they actually have a cave system underneath the brewery, and that's where they house a lot of stuff. So we need to.
Have we had any Blue Blood on the show before? I could have swore we have.
I don't think we have.
I thought somebody brought it in a beer stein, or not a beer stein, but
nope.
a growler.
Growler? No, I don't think so.
Oh, okay.
Stein would have been okay too if they would have
Stein.
an actual Stein.
Yes.
Yep. So on with the shoe.
Yes, really, really good show about incarceration.
Right. This was one of my general ideas, but you actually picked this particular topic.
Yeah.
Out of the ideas that I had, and is there a reason that you picked it, or just
when you suggested the 3 topics, I was looking at the other 2, and I'm like, those would be fun to do. But I know before you even mentioned it, I knew not a lot, but I knew about this privatized system, and pretty much they're making money off of people.
It's funny, the reaction. It's almost universal, the reaction you get when, like, friends of mine say, "Well, what are you talking about tonight?" Or the next one, and I'm like, private prisons or prisons for profit, and you almost get the exact same response. Oh yeah.
About that.
Yeah,
because people do know a little bit about it. Some people are like, "Well, what about the prison downtown?" I'm like, "Well, that's a public prison.
They're state-run prisons, and yep,
it's a different ball game." But then, who watches the outside perimeter fence? You come across that. It's like
you saw that documentary too.
I might have. It becomes a dodgy situation. If they escape. Can the guards, because they're not police officers in the private prisons, they are guards.
Well, you're delving into some topic. Let's go through here for the people that don't know what we're talking about. I would think most people know what a private prison or a prison for profit would be.
Yes,
but just so we can break it down for people,
if you've never been there before, let's break it down for you.
Yeah, exactly. From my extensive knowledge of prisons, yes. I will talk about what an actual privately held or prison for profit is. So
and we are talking hearsay because neither Brian and I have been in a private prison before. That I believe,
driven by them.
Okay.
So its name implies exactly what it is. It's a prison that's privately held or controlled by a company or entity, and usually it starts off as a government contracted third party, where the state government says, "Hey, we have an overpopulation of prisons or in our prison system here that are state run, so we are going to contract either for administrative duties or for the entirety of the prison." And a lot of the stuff nowadays is entirety, where they control administration and the operations of the actual prison.
Yeah.
So what they tend to do, and we'll get into this in a little bit, but they tend to lease back the beds to the states, which is another way for them to make profit.
Yeah.
But
oh, well, you didn't get enough people in here for us to...
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, we'll talk about that then.
That's all right. So here in the United States, and Britt, jump in. I know that both Britt and I didn't have a whole lot of time this week, but I did do
lots of worky.
Yep.
No time to searchy.
If you have something, just jump in.
Yeah, no, we just...
I kind of wanted to get into the history of it. Is that cool?
Mean,
I got the history.
It really started back just after the 70s. You didn't really start. You started seeing them more in the 80s.
The American Revolution.
Well,
now that wasn't prisons like physical prisons, so they were housing them back in the American Revolution. They had these prisoners, and they had no place to put them, so they were putting on these things called husks. And what husks are they are floatable boats, but they are not seaworthy boats, and they would just turn them into these floating prisons.
Here's my thought process. What we're really going to talk about is people for profit for that, and that really didn't start until the 80s. Right into the 90s.
Right.
Late 80s.
Yep. I've just got a couple things on history, and then we're going to jump right into that the 80s, because that's the big hit right there. Mm-hmm. So
people must have been committing a lot of crime in the 80s.
Yes, they did, and there's a reason for that.
Yeah.
So the first one was San Quentin out in the San Francisco Bay. Mm-hmm. That was actually built by the prisoners that were on one of these husks, and so they built one of these, and that was back in 1852. And it was kind of a hybrid.
I would have been a crafty builder, I'd been like, escape hatch or something
Right.
like that.
Oh, did the toilet move and there was a door behind it? Oh, I had no idea.
I could
How
have
did
sworn
that
it was
get
right
there?
in the blueprints.
Yeah, how did that get there? The reason for a lot of the jump up of some of these privatized prisons was because in post Civil War South, you know what happened in the Civil War. We freed the slaves after the Civil War. So all these Southern plantation owners lost their workforce. So they would have what was called a convict lease. They would actually pay for prisoners to do all the work, which is where you hear like the chain gangs and all that.
Yeah.
And that
That's
actually,
the sound of the man.
yeah, working on chain. So, and that actually went all the way in through the 80s or 90s, I believe. I mean, it was relatively recent that they were still doing that. So, and then in the 1980s, we got the biggest increase in privatized prisons. Britt, do you know why we had the biggest increase on the privatized prisons?
No.
Do you know what happened in the 1980s?
The cop force went down?
The war on drugs.
Oh, yeah. I know all about that. Yes. No, yeah. Now that you say it, I'm like, oh, yeah.
Yeah,
That's what that was.
It changed the whole dynamic of things, the war on drugs, because prisons were so overpopulated. So they had to make these new prisons. And it wasn't before the 1980s, like I said, it was kind of a hybrid thing. Like the state owned the prison, but they would contract out the administrative duties and whatnot. But now, like the 1980s, like it was full on. We are just build a prison, and then we'll just rent those beds from you because we're like so overpopulated.
From the 80s on till now, it's gone up 700+% or more. I bet you that was a 2015 or 13 study.
Yeah.
So I guarantee it's more like 1,000% more than it was. But with that said, the criminal act is on the decline. So I mean,
right? Yeah.
Which we'll get into that, I'm sure, later.
Yeah, I do have some statistics on that. Not a whole lot, but I do have some. So the first, actually, what we consider is the modern privatized prison for profit. What you think of today, that actually started in 1984 by Core Civic in Hamilton County, Tennessee.
Yep.
That wasn't the original name back then. They were known as CCA or Corrections Corporation of America was the original name
Sounds
of them.
very official.
Yes, Corrections Corporation of America.
Yes, we are the leading standard of
the
corrections.
Standard. Yes, I'm sure they had a very cool. They probably had a cool promotional video too.
The problem was they were more focused on how many people they could get in their prisons than actually correcting them while they're in the prisons.
Right. Yep. And that tends to be a problem across the board with the privatized prisons. Going back to this, the Core Civic in Hamilton County, Tennessee, this was the first time that the government in any country contracted the complete operation of the jail. So, way to go, America! We were the first people to do that.
Right.
So nice job on that one. Though, what's interesting now is the UK started about the same time that we did doing privatized prisons, and now privatized prisons in the UK are required by law to turn a profit.
Interesting.
Right.
You have to turn a profit.
You have to turn a profit,
or you get what, shut down?
Probably.
I would assume.
Yeah, I don't know.
So with this talk, it actually it was kind of funny. I was just scrolling through Facebook today, and across my feed came the most elegant prisons out there, and I'm like, "Are you
elegant
microphone? Are you listening to me? Like, are you hearing what I'm saying and then like putting it on my news feed? Because nowhere did I talk about that we're going to do this prison talk on Facebook anywhere. I didn't.
Did it read your text message?
I didn't look it up in YouTube at that point yet. You know, it just fell in line, and it was just like, one of the coolest, awesomest prisons out there is actually in Sweden.
Oh well, yeah. There's a lot. I didn't do a lot of research on the overseas prisons because Britain.
Norway, Germany, Spain, Scotland. They have nice prisons like. Almost better than the house I'm living in now.
They're closely
they're
aligned
like dorms.
I would say more like assisted living places.
Yeah, because they have a kitchen, you know, they have a shower area.
Yep, but the guards are around.
They're around.
Yep.
You know, I just don't see the Swedes getting very rowdy. You know, they're like, it's okay. They're actually more in tune with correcting them.
Right.
saying, look at what you did wrong.
Right.
You did this bad, and you need to learn that is bad.
Yeah, I think I think the Department of Corrections needs to change its name to Department of Incarceration.
Yes.
Because really,
Yes.
they're not about rehabilitation and corrections. So back to Core Civic. I just did want to talk about the privatized prisons just a little bit here. A lot of what we're talking about, the privatized prisons for profit, are based in the south and the western portions of the United States. And realistically, and it might be a little higher now, but only approximately 10% of prisoners in the U.S. are held in privatized prisons. There are like 2.2 million incarcerated people in prisons right now.
Right.
I believe, roughly. I mean, give or take. And about 10%, as of 2015, it was like between 8 and 10%. So it might be a little higher.
These little private prisons only popped up because of overcrowding in public prisons.
Oh, yeah,
That's
they did.
the only reason why they did.
The largest facility is actually in Pecos, Texas, the Reeves County Detention Complex. And Louisiana has the highest incarceration rate in the world.
Oh, Cajun.
Gotcha. Louisiana. There's the tie into the nuts there.
Well, I just figured caged in.
Right.
Cajun.
Hey,
that's what I was thinking.
Oh, okay.
Now you get it.
Yep, now I get it.
I sent the text message of like, did you get it? And you didn't respond back.
Yeah, no, I thought you. Yeah, never mind.
That's all right.
Some of the big players in the privatized prisons. Do you have some of the names there, Britt?
Well, you said the CCA.
Yeah, Corrections Corporation of America, which is now Core Civic.
Which, just mind you, back in 2010, they had a $3 billion revenue. So they were making the money.
See, and I was thinking
it was both CCA and GEO mixed together, both together.
I was going to say because the actual the privatized prisons, that industry is a $5 billion industry.
But they're making money off of prisoners.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Period.
Period. Yes. Done. Yeah. So Britt mentioned the GEO group, which was formerly the Wackenhut Securities.
The Wackenhut?
WACKENHUT.
Right.
Wackenhut.
We can't make these things up.
Wackenhut. Which I find...
It's kind of like, the gas station Come and Go. Like, really? You had to use Come and Go?
Really? Yep. I do find that kind of interesting that those are the two big ones. There's a third one here that I'll mention here in a minute, but those two big ones went through a name change. Why, as a company, would you change names? To me, and I've dealt with this in what I do, when they change the name, something happened or something went wrong or whatever.
Yeah, had a bankruptcy or somebody was suing somebody for something. And
or they got in trouble or whatever, so they changed their name. I don't know if that actually happened here in this case, but any company that changes their name,
it's a little fishy.
You kind of wonder why they're doing it. Yep.
Things that make you go,
So the third one was the MTC Corrections, or the Management and Training Corp. That's the third one. A little bit smaller than the GEO and the CCA or the Core Civic. But, I didn't... I'm sure there's other ones, but those are the kind of the big three.
So I do want to read a statement here from I was mentioning the 2010 annual report from CCA. They had they had this conference, all their shareholders...
Well, I mean, it's a prison for profit, so you're gonna have shareholders and investors and all that, and you gotta appeal to those investors.
So here's a little quote said by the CEO of the company. Said the demand for our facilities and services could be adversely affected by the relaxation of law enforcement's efforts, a leniency in convictions, or drop in parole standards and sentencing practices, or through the decriminalization of certain activities that are currently prohibited by our criminal laws. So they're pretty much saying if anything changes, any sentencing practices, any immigration laws, they're trying to legalize weed right now everywhere. If something changes, they're gonna get affected.
Right,
and they're really just telling their shareholders that just to save their butt, essentially.
Oh yeah,
but it's weird to think about that. It's just like, things that make you go,
yeah. There was another report or an article posted last year. This was like August timeframe, so we were going through the election cycle.
Yeah.
At that point, that was getting hot and heavy in August. But the DOJ did a report and found that privatized prisons were less safe, less secure, and had higher punishments than their state counterparts. And they actually recommended that the government not use privatized prisons. In response, the government did ban the use of privatized prisons.
Did you do any research on the prison up in Ohio?
I did not.
All right.
Now I did watch that little documentary.
Yep.
But that was the only.
There's lots of documentaries out there.
Well, specifically on the one in Ohio, but and it was a little 20-minute. And there, if you want more information on some of these, there's 3 documentaries that I would recommend that you watch. The first one is from 2014. It's called Kids for Cash, and that's it was an actual thing in Pennsylvania where these 2 judges were bribed by the prisons. They were
sending 10-year-olds to prison.
Great.
For stealing cinnamon.
Yeah. So, these 2 judges were bribed $1 million each by the privatized prisons, and they were sending these kids to jail, and they would get the prisons would get money for that. So it turned into the Kids for Cash. So that's an actual documentary that you can watch. It was in Pennsylvania. The next one is Prisons for Profit. That's the one Britt's talking about that's on Ohio, and it specifically talks about one prison in Ohio that's privately owned and the inner workings
and how
of it.
Horrible it can be.
And they also, in that one, they interview a father that has his son in there.
And this is the prison right off of Lake Erie. They were about a mile inlet from Lake Erie.
Right.
A little small town. I could have swore I wrote it down, but anyway, there was just crap going on there. You see all these movies. And what's the TV show that I'm watching right now? Not Reno 911.
That's a true story, right?
All right, Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Okay,
I'm watching Brooklyn Nine-Nine, and they're mocking the prison system by saying that you can get anything you want. I need a cell phone. Well, the one in Ohio, literally, they were saying people were taking bags of whatever they needed, cell phones, drugs, whatever.
They were making
booze,
they were
just throwing them over the fence.
Absolutely. Well, that was because in that particular one, the privatized prison said we control everything that goes on in the prison, but it's up to the local government to patrol everything out on the outskirts, the perimeter of the prison. So nobody really knew. The guards in the prison weren't taking control of the perimeter. The local government was already overtasked and understaffed, so it didn't control the perimeter. So
to mention the guards that were working there were not properly trained.
No, and they said that it got to a point because it was a private prison. They had to be careful about the rules and the regulations. They didn't want to step in.
They simply said you can't touch them.
Right.
So once they started fighting, they're just all like,
stand back.
And they said they were going to give them pepper spray, so they did pepper spray training.
But nobody was trained in it, and nobody got it.
This guy was, then they never gave it to him. It's like,
yep,
come on,
exactly,
come on,
exactly. That the training aspect of it is pretty shoddy. I mean, and it's all in an effort to save money because if you're running a for-profit business, then you're going to have to cut some costs to try and increase that profit.
Well, and they were saying that this, place in Ohio, as a correction facility, that they were offering these programs, like computer repair. Oh, that's cool. You can learn a trade, and then when you leave here as a rehabilitated criminal, you could go get a job because you have this special skill. They said these guys in this class were just playing video games and stuff because they cut the funding. They still had the computers and stuff, so go ahead and play games or whatever.
Right, but there was a school there that was actually sent professors there, and they discontinued the contract of them in an effort to save money, or cut costs, I should say, not save. I mean, it is kind of one and the same. But.
We've had a few friends that have gone to jail. They should have actually been here on the show. That would have been unique to talk about.
It would have been.
I
don't know.
Not that we'd want to force it down that they've been in jail, but they would actually bring a different talk because I've never been inside it, but I've heard stories.
And through some of this research, we heard some of those stories. I did want to talk about Britt. We did kind of go off on a tangent there a little bit. We talked about the Department of Justice report finding that privatized prisons were blah, 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 and the government banned the use. That was in August of 2016. In February of 2017 of this year, the DOJ actually reversed the ban, which was interesting because they were the ones that wanted the ban implemented in the first place. And it cited that it impaired the Bureau's ability to meet the future needs of the federal corrections system. So what they're saying is basically overcrowding is a thing, and we need these privatized prisons because the state-run and federally run prisons are not able to keep up with demand.
So with that said, Obama, as much as we have a love-hate relationship with, at least I do. He did do some good things, and so you were starting to see this decline in privatizational prisons. You started to see the decline in that, and it was all because of Obama. These laws he was trying to pass and all that stuff. But as soon as Trump got in, you could see the stock market just skyrocket for privatized prisons. And I thought that was pretty unique. So, I don't know what they're trying to accomplish. I understand that.
Well, let's get into
he
this.
probably has some friends in the high places that might need a back scratching every once in a while. But there are lobbyists out there that are paid millions of dollars by CCA and that other company, GEO, to make sure that these laws get passed. So
yeah, it's turned into a political machine.
The laws have been passed because skyrocket of shareholder prices.
Yeah, and there's also
their stock went from $5 to $46 in I think it was a span of 4 months. Yeah,
that's pretty crazy.
Yeah, I wish I would have gotten on that stock.
Well, then you'd be contributing to this problem.
Yeah. I'm just a shareholder.
Well, they got to keep.
That
you
is
happy.
part of the problem.
Exactly.
Part of the problem.
Exactly. So, speaking of costs on this, are privately owned prisons cost effective? Is it a good? Let's try and come up with some good things about privately owned prisons.
Well, let's.
And while we're thinking about that,
give them a spare rib. How about that?
While we're thinking about that, we're going to get into the Spare Rib Pale Ale, which is by Coop Ale Works.
Yeah,
and it is a 4%, so a little bit less. I didn't talk about the Companion Kolsch was 4.2, so another lower ABV.
Yeah, usually we're drinking high octane like
8, 9, 10.
Yeah,
11,
8, 9, 10. Well, we're drinking the IPAs and stuff. This time, I don't think there's a single IPA here.
This is a pale. This is a pale ale.
Oh, it is pale ale.
But it's not an IPA.
Right. Not Indian pale ale. But I only chose this because I looked at the front and I just thought it was kind of funny. It's got two skeletons on the front of it, and it's like, when people go to jail, they rot away in jail sometimes, and I just thought, that would be kind of the tie-in. But the more we looked into it, on the website, Brian, what was the saying? And stop by the gas station, which you're robbing, and share it with a buddy.
No, well, yeah. Give me a second here. I'll bring it right up. I have it right here. So at the last line of it is, share the refreshing gas station beer with your nearest companion, which I was like, Britt, did you realize that the three, because we have 3 beers here, and the first one was the Companion Kolsch, and now this one states that you need to share it with your nearest companion, so those two tie in together. And then the third beer that we have is an Oktoberfest, which the Oktoberfest is a German, which Kolsch is German, so those two end up tying together. So
yeah.
Inadvertently, you've tied all 3 together.
And I think I did that the last time I bought beer. It was like 2 times ago. I just inadvertently grabbed some beers that just absolutely made sense.
That's just how cool you are, Britt.
I'm good at picking beer,
All right. This is cool.
I really just try to pick stuff that I haven't drank before. That's what I always try to, you're home on a, Tuesday, Wednesday night or something like that, and you want beer. Yeah, you go to your go-to beer because you're like, that's the good stuff. But for this show, I like doing the new stuff. Gets me trying different things.
This is our highest IBU, the International Bitterness Units, at 35. The other ones are 15 and 17, so really low. So this is a
lot better color.
Right. Well, yeah,
and no floaties in this one.
This almost looks like a grapefruit juice kind of color.
Yeah,
a little bit. And this.
It does kind of. It's got not a grapefruity, but a citrus kind of flavor.
There we go. Well, grapefruit is a citrus.
Yeah, you know what I mean. So,
cheers to that.
Cheers to that, for sure.
Yeah, you can taste the citrus, the hoppiness. It is kind of grapefruity.
Moses is on giving us compliments on our sound, so thank you, Moses Supposes. And he also said,
I won't do it this time.
He goes, Brit, it sounds cool. And he goes, Brit, cool? Questionable, pretty much. That's a stretch.
Nicely done, Moses.
Yeah,
Nice. Yeah, so I didn't mention that Coop Ale Works is from Oklahoma City, so our southern neighbors in Oklahoma.
Down in Oklahoma.
Yeah, through Kansas. And
they're the makers of F5, and that's the tornado beer.
Coop Ale Works is?
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
So it's now I get why they have the F5 tornado.
Hey.
Because it's Oklahoma.
Light bulb.
Yeah, makes sense now.
Exactly. So where were we on that talk? We were talking
that they spend a lot of money on lobbyists to make laws change and make it go their way.
Yep. Man, I lost my place here.
So with that said, though,
all right, there
there's been a lot since the privatization of. I don't
just slow down.
Tripping up on that word. Privatization. There's been over 200 plus reports of sexual abuse from detainees, and probably more, just not documented.
Wait a minute.
I know. I just
wait a minute. You said 200?
200 plus documented reports.
That seems really low. That's probably like at one prison.
It could be. I don't know.
I mean,
you know what? I think I was watching the Ohio prison one.
Yeah, I was going to say that's across the privatization of prisons.
Yeah, no, this is the Ohio one, I believe, is what I was talking about. And we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, so in one prison you have that. So back to the reports. In 2011, the ACLU, which love the American Civil Liberties Union, they actually found that privatized or private prisons or private facilities, they end up costing the taxpayers more money. The prisoners end up being more violent, or there's more violence in there, whether it's prisons or the actual guards. They're less accountable because as a private prison, they don't have to be as forthcoming or transparent in their reporting processes like the state. And they contribute to an increase in mass incarceration because the more beds they have full, the better it is for them. In another study in 2014, this one was done by a UC Berkeley doctoral candidate. He found that the minority inmates are a higher percentage in private prisons than they are in state prisons. Well, why is that? Why are minorities high? Why is there across
somebody's getting paid to send them there?
Well, here the thing is, minorities are cheaper. Why are they cheaper? Because usually minorities are younger when they go into prison than older. And older inmates, and we're talking 50 plus, and this is from an ACLU accounting thing report, older prisoners, 50 years old and older, are more expensive at an average of $68,000 per year. Most older prisoners tend to be white. The younger prisoners, which tend to be of minorities, are $34,000 a year, because they don't need the geriatrics, they don't need the drugs, they're just younger, they're healthier, so they don't need as much money to
Interesting.
do that. Yeah, so
interesting statistic,
right? And the private prisons say that they kind of shuffle out the prisoners. If it's an older white prisoner, they'll shuffle them out because they cost more to actually detain them. Right. So they'll shuffle them out to the state prisons.
Feed him meds and make sure that he's got his walker.
Exactly. You have to have more medical facilities for him and all that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So then, so the younger ones, the minorities. So that's why they tend to be higher in there.
Gotcha. Interesting. Mm-hmm. So yeah, with that said, the USA Today. I'm slipping up on my words today.
You doing all right?
I'm doing. I haven't even drank it all. I mean, it's like my second beer. It says, with taxpayer funding, these prisons expect little in terms of accountability in return for us footing the bill. Even though for-profit prisons are fulfilling a government role by housing federal prisoners, the industry remains shrouded in secrecy and shielded from meaningful public oversight. I don't know if secrecy should be the right word for prisons.
Well, in the lack of oversight, there's going to be secrecy. I don't know that secrecy is their main point, but more of a lack of accountability is what they're wanting.
Well, like I said, I was watching Brooklyn Nine-Nine, and right now they've got one of their guys, guy and a gal, locked up in 2 different prisons. And he went into the yard, and he wanted to get beat up by this officer to get the officer kicked out instead of killing him. You know, he was trying to. It's like, I'm an inside cop, but like they lost his documents, so like now he's stuck inside.
I know nothing of the show.
Anyway,
so, yeah.
He went and saw the main guy because he got beaten up like 4 times, and finally he had a cell phone, and he tried recording it, and that's when the what do they call that guy, the head of the
warden?
The warden, yes. He had to go to the warden's office, and he's all like, "Yeah, I heard a stir in the yard. That's usually when I go over and shut off the cameras." I was like, "Oh man, that landed on thick." You know what I mean?
Wow.
Because how do you control that? It's all like, "Oh yeah, those cameras have been needing to get fixed for a while."
Yeah. Must have bumped the cable.
Yeah, right. I don't know. Shoot. Did Jimmy lean on the button to turn it off?
Was that not uploading to the computer? Right. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, man. We need to redo our hard drives or things of that nature.
Yeah.
So I could foresee a lot of things happening shrouded in secrecy.
Yeah.
That could potentially happen.
I think the secrecy,
without people knowing.
I think the shrouded in secrecy is just an after effect of what they are trying to accomplish, and that is the lack of oversight. Mm-hmm. So, which kind of, which came first, the secrecy or the oversight? I don't know.
Well, that's why they call it a private prison.
Twofold.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Yeah.
I like that. I had mentioned earlier some of the ways that these private prisons make money. They lease the beds back to the states.
By the way, I am enjoying this.
This is very nice. I do.
Delightful. We didn't really talk too much about it. Kind of went right back into our talk.
We did. I mean, we're very enthusiastic.
But yeah, it's definitely got a little bit of a citrus flavor to it. Big on late hoppy flavor. Yeah, I would say it right there.
Yeah, it is. It's very smooth up front.
Oh, they use citra hops.
Hey,
there you go.
Which is a good one. I like that one. No, I've had friends that say like IPAs, and this is not an IPA. This is just a pale ale. But I have heard friends that have called it the grapefruit beers, which I totally get after having them. I understand that, and I'm a fan of grapefruit, so that's probably why I like them.
I like the Stiegel.
The Stiegel?
Stiegel has that grapefruit beer. Man,
that's
good.
One of those lawnmower beers. After you're mowing the lawn,
you're sweating. You're just all like, I don't want something heavy. I think it's 3-2. It's nothing. But
3-2 beer. That's a throwback.
I do believe it's a 3-2 beer.
Nice. So some of the ways that these prisons make money, I've mentioned the leasing the beds and all that, but they also have contracts with the state that say that, and it's not everyone, but a lot of them, that they have to remain 90% full.
90 to 100% full.
Yeah.
Sign contracts with the state stating that prisons will be filled to 90 to 100%. If not, the state will pay for the unused beds.
They're fined. Yeah.
Yeah, they'll pay for the...
we
will pay for the unused beds.
Which, in all total, as of 2015, privatized prisons were a $5 billion industry. That's
how do you get somebody...
With a B, folks.
How do you get somebody to sign a contract like that? Like, if your law enforcement's not doing their job and sending them into incarceration, and if your judges aren't sending enough people to jail, well, we're just going to slap a bill and you're going to have to pay it. Okay?
So
it's like, who signs that?
All right, so let's play that role. Let's say you're in a meeting with the privatized prisons people, and you're reading through the contract as a state official, and they say, this is our contract. You're going to read it, and you're going to sign it. What's the alternative if you don't sign it?
Well, I mean, 90 seems like a high number.
I
you
agree.
could come at me with 75, 80. I'd be like, oh, okay, 75, 80 full. That's cool.
But if you're looking at the numbers,
90, I'm like, oh,
if you're looking at
a lot close to 100 there.
If you're looking at the overcrowding numbers, and some of these privatized prisons have like 3 people per cell in a 2-person cell. I mean, it's crazy.
Okay, so public prisons are going overcrowded.
Yeah,
they're overcrowded. So we have to send them to this prison. which by filling it 80 or 90 to 100%
costs us money per bed,
is going to overfill that one.
Right.
It's like, well, you're not killing two birds with one stone here. You're just filling both of them up.
Right. But and you're paying per bed, and if you don't fill all the beds, then you're paying because you're not filling the beds. So they're winning out on both sides of that.
All right.
That's insane.
They get paid either way.
Man. Yeah, I need to write contracts like that. Those are
Again,
that's awesome.
I should be a shareholder. I mean, sounds like a win-win, right? You get paid both ways. No, I don't want to be a shareholder.
That's crazy. Yeah, their shareholders got to be happy. I didn't really have a whole lot more on this. I do want to get into how do we solve this, or unless you had more. I mean, we're running. This is we're not even an hour, but so this is gonna be a short one. But I don't want to just ramble on this. I want to talk about what we need to talk about. Is there anything else that you need to bring up on it before we get into how we solve it?
What we've covered is we know there's a problem with privatized jails.
Right. Why is there a problem? Because they cost us. They end up costing the state more money anyway, which is supposed to be a cost saving measure, but it's.
So I guess I didn't do my research on publicly owned prisons. Are they facing?
State runs?
Yeah, the state run prisons.
Yeah,
are they
federally?
Are they having the same amount of problems? Because some of the problems were the CCA prisons were it's a for-profit, four-person facility. They in turn weren't taking their money and putting it back into the facility, so they were getting like backups in the toilets. Crumbling a wall. It's like that wall is supposed to keep the prisoners in. Like repair that stuff.
Right. Yeah, and if a toilet stops working in a cell, you can't just what are you going to give him a bucket?
There was one guy that served his time 15 whatever 20 years. He said there's at one point he could not eat. He couldn't eat because the smell was so bad.
Oh, gotcha. Yep.
Oh, I'm like, oh my gosh. But my question is,
I have an answer.
Is the publicly owned ones, the state run ones, in the same boat?
So I can answer that partially because I don't know the full extent of it. But the privately owned prisons tend to have lower wages for their guards, and because of that, they have less training for their guards. Whereas the federally owned or the state owned, they have more training and they pay their guards more.
Well, so they're actually police officers, aren't they?
They are in the Department of Corrections. I don't know that they have arresting power because I think that's the difference between
they have guarding power. They don't have arresting.
Yeah, guarding power seems kind of a low blow. I want to say that because I don't want to discount anything these guys do. They're putting themselves in harm's way too. So, but I don't think they have arresting power like police officers do. So it's a little different. I think they go through similar.
Not that they would need to arrest anybody because they're already in jail.
Exactly. But I think they have similar duties in that.
You said
I know, I did. But or similar training. They have weapons training, they have de-escalation training, they have breaking up fights and armed combat and all that stuff. So they have those kind of trainings that the police officers do, but they don't. Now I'm specifically talking federally and state-owned prisons. I'm not talking privately owned prisons.
Yeah.
They're trying to just make a buck and keep it as cheap as possible.
Sure.
So from that aspect, they're not going to have the problems. Now, on the flip side of that, some of the problems that they do have in state and federally owned prisons are overcrowding.
Right.
Not because. That is why we have privately owned prisons, is because of this problem in state and federally owned prisons of the overcrowding. And funny statistic.
But we're hearing all the bad side of privately owned prisons, especially the one like we were talking about in Ohio where they were just chucking duffel bags of whatever over the fence, and they said literally people were drunk in the yard. It's like, where did you get the booze from? All the toilet wine you made,
they were making it too. Yeah,
they didn't have to. They just had somebody on the inside.
I know, but they could also make it too. But I do want on the overcrowding aspect. So a lot of people like to say that the United States is the worst when it comes to incarceration.
It is.
And all that. Okay, now we have the most people in it, but did you know, like per capita wise, we're not number one?
Okay, who's number one?
It's actually
Australia.
No, which is funny because Australia was started because it was a prison country. But anyway, the Seychelles. which is
Coconuts? No, I'm just
yeah, it looks like Seychelles, but it's pronounced seashells. But it's just east of Africa, of Madagascar. Actually, it's an archipelago, 1,500 island thing or whatever. They actually have the statistic is 800 people per 100,000 there. Where in the States, we're at like 600, a little over 600 people per 100,000. So they're quite a bit difference. Now, the thing with the Seychelles is there's only 92,000 people in the Seychelles, but they have 800 people in prison. So, I mean, it's...
What was the movie where they had an island by L.A.? Escape L.A.?
Escape from L.A. with, gosh, what is his name? Big Trouble Little China. And he was in
that was a good movie.
And he was in
Just
the new
put them all on an island, they'll fight it out, they'll figure it out.
He's also in the new Guardians of the Galaxy.
Oh, yeah.
Gosh, what is his name?
If we only had a device connected to
the wealth of human knowledge. Yeah,
Yep,
I know.
right, exactly.
I don't need to look it up.
It's fine.
Yep. He's a really, yeah.
So yeah, let's solve this thing.
How do we solve this thing?
Well,
what are some suggestions on that?
I don't know, legalize drugs, and so that we don't have to have so many people in.
That's one way, and I think that's kind of what the. It almost looks like the federal government's kind of working towards that, where they're legalizing some things.
Not that I'm a huge fan of the legalization of all of the drugs, but some of them aren't as harsh as spending 15, 20 years in jail for,
well, that's what we're seeing. A lot of the war on drugs people are the older ones in prison now.
Yeah. They arrest some guy with a small baggie of whatever, cocaine or
that's a whole nother
weed
topic.
Or something like that. Just a small, minuscule amount. Well, it's in a plastic bag or something like that. Well, now it's intent to distribute. It's like, well, to me, if he had a very small amount, to me it would be his own stuff.
Mm-hmm. I think we need to have a side topic on. We need to just do the war on drugs.
The war on drugs, absolutely. That's a huge one, and that's why we saw in the 80s and 90s the prison population just blew up, is because they're arresting all these people because of these minuscule crimes, these tiny crimes, and what it really boiled down to was how quickly can we fill these prisons and how much money can we make off these people.
Mm-hmm.
It's ridiculous.
Yep. So one way would be, you could legalize some things or have less strict punishment.
Right, exactly.
Not necessarily legalize them, but
right. The guy that murdered his wife shouldn't get the same treatment as the guy who had a bag of something in his pocket.
Right. Well, and states have actually been trying to limit the use of privatized prisons since 2000, and actually, prison incarceration peaked in 2012. Even though there was all this the war on drugs started this, 2012 was the peak.
Yeah.
I'm not sure why or what led up to that, but ever since then it's been kind of slowly declining, which is a good thing.
The wealth of human knowledge.
Yeah, it could be. Or the justice system or whatever. Maybe the government working towards...
Well, since that happened, now CCA is trying to find... and that's why we were talking about cutting budgets to all these things.
Right.
Because they're just trying to find money anywhere they can,
We're going to charge you for the beds, and then if you don't fill the beds, we're going to fine you. So, you're getting them double.
We need to buy ketchup. Well, take those containers that had ketchup in them and put water in them and shake it up and
go to McDonald's and grab a handful of ketchup packets.
Right? I don't know. None about that.
The truth is, as private citizens, we really can't do a whole lot because this is going to come down to the government level, the federal, state government level. But we can get the word out. Talk to your local officials.
You can get the right people in office that aren't for it. But
that's us as private citizens.
By the time they get in office, they get $1 million check in their hand. They
right.
go, well, actually, it's not a bad idea.
Here's the thing. If we can make it not profitable for these companies, that's when it's going to stop. That's the reality of it. Right now, it's profitable. Like we said, it's a $5 billion industry.
Here's the problem: is that darn contract. where you have to fill 90% of my jail.
Again, make it not profitable.
Was that a never-ending contract, or does that run out in 2038? I don't know.
Those are things I don't know.
Because if it's a run-out contract and we resign in whatever, don't resign.
Right, and and I wish I would have done had a little bit more time for this research, but I did, going through it, see somewhere that only 9 states in the U.S. have for-profit prisons.
I think
Is that right?
it's more than 9 now. You might have been watching something from I saw that
it wasn't a video. This was like this was actually a research page.
Because I saw a video, but I think it was from 2013, and at that time they had 12 or 13 states.
And it might be less, because I know there are states that are trying. Like I said, as of 2000, they have been trying to limit that.
But it's a real problem because they're hiring Johnny off the street.
Right.
And they're like, we're going to give you a $9.50 an hour. And he's like, oh my gosh, that's great. You know?
Well, it seems to be going in the right direction, though.
And he's not going to protect nobody for nothing with his pepper spray in his pocket, which they're not going to give him.
Exactly. I think it's heading in the right direction, though. States, like I said, as of 2000, have been trying to limit the private prisons. So that's a step in the right direction. When state and local governments are like, hey, this is a problem. We recognize that. Let's start limiting their use, which makes it not profitable for them.
Right.
So we're heading there.
Yeah,
we're heading there. We're gonna grab the last one on the last hurrah here.
The last hurrah. We'll finish it out strong. We'll keep talking about what we're talking. It's I'm glad I've never been in one.
Right.
I feel bad for the people that have been in them. I can't fathom the fact of going into a facility and denied all rights, and you're incarcerated and you're stuck in this jail, and oh, by the way, we're going to put another person in your jail in a bunk bed, and
you're going to sleep on the floor.
It seems like to this point right now, they're like, oh, there's going to be one more, so there's 3 people to a cell. I don't know if there's 3 people to a cell, but I wish I could. I'm getting more stuff here.
A few more comments.
Yeah, a few more comments.
What does Moses have to say?
You're missing out. I'm glad I'm missing out on that one. I'm missing out on this next beer, which is Oktoberfest, which I'm really excited about. All the pumpkin flavors are coming back. You got pumpkin spice latte. You got the pumpkin.
No thanks.
But these aren't pumpkin. This is Oktoberfest. It's a different thing.
I know, but I don't need to pumpkin spice all the things.
We were over at my good friend Andy and Sarah's last night, and we got there kind of late, and but it was all right. They still had plenty of food, and she made pumpkin pie.
Now pumpkin pie. Now I will take pumpkin spice
from
flavor
scratch.
In pumpkin pie.
Yeah,
She
bought the pumpkin. Yeah, made the pumpkin pie.
That is where pumpkin spice flavor belongs. In pumpkin pie.
She's like, not to brag, but this is the best pumpkin pie I've ever made in my entire life, and I'm like, I'm glad I can witness it.
Yes. I'm witnessing greatness right here.
Exactly. Exactly.
This particular Oktoberfest that we're going to end the talk on is from Lucky Bucket, the local boys here. It is a 5.5 ABV, 17 IBU, and they have a little saying on here, because if you go to their website, they just have the regular blue label Oktoberfest, and this is the brown label, and it's the Marzen style beer, BIER, which is German for March style beer,
which is a lot darker than I thought it was going to be.
It's a full-bodied, they say pale amber to even dark brown. So it kind of runs the gamut on color.
I understand putting it in brown bottles makes the beer better because it's shielded from the light.
It's really clear. Look at how
I know that's what I was. It's clear but dark.
Yeah, it's really. They have definitely filtered that.
Because I guess if it was in clear bottles, I would judge it a lot more. I'd be like, maybe not.
Yeah, I don't.
Just judging by the color. But this one, if I would have saw this color, I would have been like, oh,
that is a very full-bodied.
Yeah.
Compared to the Kolsch, which was pretty light, and the Pale Ale, which is citrusy.
It's like I'm looking through it, and I've got the big spotlight that shines on us, and it's orange. It is a nice, deep, almost
amber.
Yeah, amber is the color of my energy. There you go.
Nicely said. They should write that down and put that in a song.
Yeah, they should.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of songs, I was down at the Hive Friday night, like I am, DJing it up, and it got down toward the ends of the night, and I just had to do it. Weezer, Beverly Hills, good old Hugh Hefner up there,
yeah.
So, Hugh, this one's to you.
Yeah.
Ooh, that even rhymes.
Hey,
Hugh,
you're a
this one's to
poet and you didn't even know it.
Oh.
Well done. Well done on that one. Yeah,
Interesting.
I almost came out and saw you Friday night because I was actually working till 1:45.
Oh, you should have.
So I got home and I was like, should I? Nope, I'm tired.
No,
I'm going to bed.
Sometimes.
Sometimes.
Oktoberfest. This is actually is lighter than I thought it would be. I thought this Oktoberfest would have been a little punchier, but
I would say this particular Oktoberfest,
it's a lot smoother, a lot easier to take down.
If you've had, the Oktoberfest that I like to drink is the Sam Adams one.
Yes.
But this is by the
And
local
I was
boys.
going to get that one, but you were like, let's do something local. I'm like, no problem. Let's do that.
I dig this one better. I like this one better.
Yeah, did we even talk about Lucky Bucket being down
Here, I said I said they're local boys. Yeah, here in La Vista, which is a suburb of. Well, they like to consider themselves, their own little entity, and they are, but they're in the greater Omaha area.
They do a really good job.
They do.
They do a really good job. All their beers, I can't complain. They're right next to Nebraska Brewing Company. I mean, they've got great beers as well. For a locally
down the street from Nebraska Brewing Company.
Yes, they being a local brewery, Brian and I have high standards.
Yeah,
we have high standards, and we want to make sure that you guys are putting out good stuff. And so far, Cross Train, man, they're doing an awesome job. Lucky Bucket, they're doing an awesome job. Nebraska Brewing Company. Who else have we done?
We need to do Pint 9.
We do need to do Pint 9.
Mm-hmm. It's a newer one.
Voss Major.
Yeah. I need to go down to that place. You brought the beer
I will.
here.
I'll do. It's right down the street. Man, we need to go for sure.
They call it the Sanctuary.
Didn't I text you? I was like, "Where are you at? What are you doing?"
Yep.
But you were off doing other things.
Yep. I think we need to cut it at this point. I think we're done with the talk. I don't have anything more to say on it.
Solving it would be decriminalization of some.
It doesn't necessarily need to be decriminalization. Just at least less harsh punishment.
Well, if you let's just say legalize marijuana, there is so many people in prison for that they're all gonna just get set free.
Britt, it's a gateway drug.
It's a gateway drug. It'll take you to bad places. Yeah, I mean, you would think not half. You would think like 20-25% of the prison population would just go away because it's like, oh, well, it's legal now. Or do you keep them in because they're like, well, you were convicted because earlier, so you just got to ride your sentence out.
That's the thing, because it was illegal when they went in. I mean, that's once you decriminalize something, you just can't retroactively put that upon some of the prisoners that have been incarcerated because of the laws at the time that they broke.
But it was stupid.
I know.
Nixon. Nixon.
Well, actually, Reagan was the big push on that one.
I thought Nixon was.
War on drugs. That's
the war on drugs.
That's Reagan.
Oh, gotcha. I was wrong.
Yep. So I think that's it. I mean, we need to get your state, local officials, which they're already on top of it. They've been doing it for 17 years approximately. So it's in the works.
Moses has a thing about that weed legalization as well. It's like, they found it's good for cataracts, I guess, but it's also good for cancer. Apparently, there's so many good studies on that, but that's just one drug. There's many more out there. Mm-hmm. I mean, crack cocaine or heroin. Yeah, lock those guys up. They're just weird and crazy. And
I have a whole
lock them up so they stay away from it, but they're not going to stay away from it because you can just get in the prisons anyway, right?
Did you know that did you know that prison sentences are different between crack cocaine and actual cocaine?
Yeah, there's I don't know what they call it, Section 1, Section 5, misdemeanor. What?
But like crack and cocaine, like if you get busted for cocaine, your prison sentence is like here, And like if you do crack, then it's here.
Okay.
It's the same thing. Only it's
baked or
whatever,
so whatever they do to it.
Crack is less processed. The reason for that is crack is known as a minority drug, and cocaine is known as a rich white
Playboy drug.
a white collar drug.
Yeah.
So,
things that make you go, why'd they pass a law like that?
yeah, that's all I want to say on that one.
Yeah.
But thank you for joining us today. And I know this has been a little bit quick. We're just running barely over an hour here.
Yeah.
Which is really
probably one of our shortest talks.
I know, because normally we're going like hour and a half to 2.
Well, we started this program only wanting it to be half an hour.
I know.
We started Drink Talk back in January, and we're like, we'll do half an hour episodes. I'm like, Brian, we won't even get done talking about the beer we're drinking in a half an hour.
Well, and I wanted to do that from the standpoint of, people don't have a lot of time on their hands, so I wanted to be respectful of people's time, but I also want to put information out there. Yeah. So, and that being said, we're going to start rambling here, so I'm going to cut the podcast. And
we took 10 minutes of information and filled an hour with it. How about that? we're really good at doing that.
Yep. We have been talking on Prisons for Profits. We have been drinking on the Companion Kolsch from Blue Blood. We did the Spare Rib Pale Ale by Coop Ale Works out of Oklahoma City, and we did the Oktoberfest.
Yes.
Just still drinking on that one from Lucky Bucket, here. And we're gonna continue on that for the after talk.
Yeah,
and
when we get that out, it'll probably be something you have to pay for. We need to start making money on this thing.
yeah, or get some backers, or at least get people to bring us some beer.
Odell, you're in the background. Right.
Boop. Yep. So my name's Brian.
I'm Britt.
Thank you for joining us.
All right. Good night. All right. And Facebook Live, it's always a pleasure. You know, we love having you, Moses. You're such a blessing to the show. Oh, I actually need to talk to my microphone because
so we can actually hear you.
What did he say? Huh? Anyway, Moses hung with us pretty much the entire show. So awesome job. Love to have you. And this one thing I do love about Facebook Live is I actually see the live comments. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure if I can see that with YouTube Live.
So we can do
I don't know. I've never tried.
So we can do a group chat.
So, Moses, with that said, check out our YouTube channel. We're starting to throw videos on there. It's Drink Talk Podcast on YouTube. We might be shortening it up to just Drink Talk. We'll see. We can if we can change the name that way. But I have a program, live stream TV, I believe is what it's called.
We might be switching over completely.
Yeah, it's a lot easier, and the CPU usage on my machine is way less. I'm thinking the program that I use, this Live Desk for Facebook, is using like 88% of my CPU, whereas I'm only using 13 from this Wirecast. Yeah, Wirecast. So, yeah, I'm just like, why don't I make the change? And it has that cool feature where I can throw videos in, I can throw pictures in, and it's just a click of the button. It's like, whew.
Well, maybe we do something like we do a YouTube video, not necessarily like for the next talk, but maybe we take, sometime this next week or next week, like Saturday, and do like just a dry run of it and see how that works.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we'll see.
All right, well, bye-bye.
See you, Moses.